America. My name is Joe Fiordaliso, and I will be presiding over today's hearing. And also with me today, as I'm looking here, if I lose anybody, please let me know, is Commissioner Mariana Holden, Commissioner Diane Solomon, Commissioner Upendra Shivakula, and Commissioner Bob Gordon. And we are here today to take comments regarding
President Fiordaliso, just one
Yes,
second.
sir.
It looks like the court reporter might be having an issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's not
So
on.
it's Maribel. She's JH. I can't say that last name, but she was saying, hold on one sec.
Okay.
I don't think she has mic capabilities. So it's more
All right,
just looking.
I'll wait for your action.
Okay. Looks like she's just trying to get some figured out.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't the only one. Thank you. Good. Makes me feel better.
Not to worry.
Hi, Heather. Did you have a good birthday, Heather?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr. President. It was wonderful. How are you?
Fine. Now, I understand you're now legally old enough to drink.
Yes, it's amazing.
Isn't that something?
Finally.
I am really impressed.
And but not in Colorado, Denver airport. You need to be 65, otherwise you'll be carded.
No, thank you, sir. It was wonderful. It was really nice.
Happy birthday, Heather. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I actually went to Broadway and saw a show, brought my vaccine card, my mask, saw an amazing show. I saw Hadestown. Everyone go see it. It's
Was it
wonderful.
that good? Yeah.
It was that probably surpassed as my absolute favorite show of all time. Even better than Hamilton, like that good.
Really?
And it's with the original Broadway cast right now through December. So if you have a chance, go see it. That's my little plug. I don't make any money from it.
Merlin and I are actually going to see Hamilton on Broadway in April.
Wonderful. It is wonderful. But if you have a chance, you're close enough, go get tickets to Hadestown. Fabulous.
Okay.
Really good.
Good.
Really good.
And then I'm going to take her to McDonald's for a meal. I'm trying to decide whether to do that before or after the show.
That's all you can afford after you pay for the tickets.
You're a wonderful date.
Well, you know, it's not easy. You have to choose between McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King. I mean, this is not easy things.
No. Not at all.
And not for me, though.
Yes.
They'd only bring back the automat. You'd be all set.
That's right.
Automat. Oh my
I
goodness.
I love that thing.
Oh
I did
my
too.
goodness.
That was a big attraction when we used to go to New York City. The automat.
Hard and harder.
Yeah,
Or Schrafts.
right.
Stacy, is Maribel muted? I don't see it as an option.
No, she's not muted.
I can't hear you at all.
So
No.
we don't know if she's hearing us or anything of that sort. Huh?
Can you? Not yet. Maribel, can you try signing out and then back in or something, or re-clicking the link and then leaving?
Oh, she said she can hear us.
She can hear us.
Oh, okay, well, that's good.
Okay, as long as she can hear us then. All right, should I start from the top?
Looks like she's typing. I will raise my hand if I need you to stop. Okay, I guess that works. Does that work?
Okay, that works.
Yes.
All right, let me start from the top now again. And hi, my name is Joe Fiordaliso, and I will be presiding over today's hearing. With me are my colleagues, Commissioner Holden, Commissioner Solomon, Commissioner Shivakula, and Commissioner Gordon. We are here today to take comments regarding in the matter of the provision of basic generation service for the period beginning June 1, 2022, BPU docket number ER 21030631. I will ask DAG Michael Beck to read a statement regarding the notices for the hearing today. Michael?
Adequate public notice has been provided pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this hearing has been published in newspapers in broad circulation in the state and with the Secretary of State. Notice has been published on the board's website as well as posted in the board's office.
Thank you, Michael. On July 1, 2021, the electric distribution companies jointly filed their proposal addressing how to procure the remaining 1/3 of the state's BGS-RSCP and the current CIEP requirements for the period beginning June 1, 2022. In addition, the board also invited all other interested stakeholders to the alternative BGS procurement proposals with the board by July 1, 2021. Today's hearing is part of the procedural schedule adopted by the board in its April 7, 2021 order initiating this matter. This morning, we will be taking comments from interested parties, and after each set of comments, there may be questions from the commissioners as well as from board staff. While I will attempt to be flexible with the timing of the presentations, I would ask the parties to try to limit themselves to a maximum of 10 minutes. To set the framework for the subject before us, staff has arranged for the following presentations. First, we will hear from Nira, the BGS auction manager, and the EDCs, then from other parties and the EDCs, then from other parties, including the Division of Rate Counsel. I will go down my list in the order that parties have signed up, indicating a desire to participate in today's hearing. For any parties that are doing a panel presentation, I would be more flexible with their time limitation. Given that we are using a virtual format, I would also ask that everyone mute themselves unless speaking. Finally, a reminder that final written comments for this BGS procurement proceeding are due on Tuesday, April 12th, 2021. Final comments should only be used to respond to issues raised either in the initial comments and in today's hearing.
One correction, Mr. President.
Yes,
The final comments will be due on Tuesday, October 12th of this year.
what did I say?
I believe you said April.
Oh, I'm sorry, October 12th. My apologies. They should not be used to raise new issues in this proceeding. Are the EDCs and Nira ready to proceed?
Yes.
I see heads, okay. I will first now call upon the auction manager, which is Nira, and the EDCs for the record, if you could identify yourselves with names and spelling for the court reporter. So Nira, you're up.
Thank you so much. Good morning, President Fiordaliso. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Rachel Northcutt. That's RACHEL NORTHCUTT. And I'm from NERA. Thank you, my colleague, Paul Cardona, for sharing our presentation for today. As noted, NERA has managed the BGS auction from its inception. And today I have with me virtually, also from NERA, Paul Cardona and Dr. Chantal Lacasse, as well as representatives from the EDCs, specifically Terry Moran from PSE&G, Kevin Sight from JCP&L, Diana Novak from ACE, and Shajan Jacob from RICO. Each of these individuals is leading the respective EDC's auction efforts. I'll note that we also have additional representatives from the EDCs available today to assist in answering any questions about today's presentation. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to address the board this morning. And the EDCs will be filing final comments on October 12th that will fully address the issues that were raised in the initial comments. But today we'll focus on explaining the elements of the EDC's proposal. The EDCs continue to propose two auctions, the BGS CIEP auction to procure supply for larger commercial and industrial customers, and the EDCs continue to propose that the CIEP threshold be set at 500 kW. The second auction is the BGS RSCP auction for procuring supply for residential and smaller commercial customers. Supply is procured on a 3-year rolling basis so that customers at any given point are served supply procured at 3 different auctions. This term averaging allows smaller customers to be protected from the volatility of short-term markets while still paying rates that reflect the market. In both auctions, supply is procured for all EDCs at once so that each auction has 4 products, where a product is the BGS load for a given EDC. And all BGS customers retain the right to shop at all times. This next slide lists the key elements of the EDC's proposal that will be the topics of our presentation today, namely the product, the standard contract, the rate design, the auction format, bidder interface, and competitive safeguards. We'll also discuss an aspect of the EDC's proposal relating to the physical BGS auction office, and then we'll have some concluding remarks. And with that, I'll pass things along to my colleague, Paul Cardona, to begin our discussion.
Gotta unmute myself. Thank you, Rachel. Good morning, President Fiordalisa, and good morning, commissioners. As Rachel mentioned, my name is Paul Cardona. That's P-A-U-L-C-A-R-D-O-N-A. I'm from NERA, and I'm happy to say this will be my 11th set of BGS auctions. The first element I want to talk about today is the full requirements BGS product. Aside from the EDC's responsibility for transmission, BGS suppliers will continue to have load serving responsibility for BGS loads. BGS suppliers will be physically and financially responsible for the hour-by-hour provisions of the electricity to New Jersey's BGS customers. The full requirement service will continue to include capacity, energy, ancillary services, as well as obligations to fill New Jersey's Renewable Portfolio Standards, or RPS, and other services that PJM may require. Each BGS supplier will assemble its own portfolio of products that it believes will make the best bid and provide risk management services. The competitive discipline is brought to bear onto the cost of managing the BGS supply portfolio through the BGS auction process. The BGS auction process is designed to select the most effective portfolio manager. New Jersey's BGS customers can be expected to benefit from competitive market forces when BGS suppliers bring the full gamut of supply strategies to bear on managing a BGS supply portfolio, which includes purchases to satisfy New Jersey's RPS. The competitive discipline of the market selects those entities that are best at this management function. The BGS auction process is consistent with the state's policy to rely on competitive markets as set forth in ADECA by placing the portfolio acquisition and price risk management in the hands of competitive entities. The BGS auctions have consistently attracted a diverse set of suppliers. These suppliers are an accomplished group of portfolio managers that are disciplined by market forces. The full requirements product bought at the auction obtains a price for BGS that, when combined with the transmission charge paid by BGS customers, provides the best basis for price comparisons against third-party supplier rates and helps create an efficient retail marketplace in New Jersey. Finally, the rolling procurement structure for smaller commercial and residential customers through the BGS RSCP auction provides a balance reflecting current market prices and protecting those customers from market volatility. The second element I want to talk about for the auctions today is the standard contract. The basic structure and terms of the standard contract has been maintained from prior years. The EDCs do propose, however, that for the 2022 auctions, the standard contracts include a supplement relating to the EDC's proposal to assume responsibility for unaccounted for energy in the final monthly energy allocation, as well as meter corrections and inadvertent energy. The EDC's proposed supplement benefits customers and suppliers in multiple ways, including by increasing certainty of BGS loads. Additionally, settlement corrections are made more efficient by limiting the number of parties needing to agree to an adjustment. As in prior years, during the application process, BGS suppliers agree to the terms of the standard contract that is approved by the board. The standard contract is entered into by each BGS RSCP BGS supplier with the EDC it is supplying and enables a uniform set of obligations in the state across all EDCs. The standard contract also includes uniformly applied creditworthiness requirements and financial guarantees that help assure that BGS customers receive the benefit of the bargain obtained through the auctions. Finally, the standard contract enables a transparent price-only identification of winning bids. Now, as mentioned in the previous slide, the standard contracts have changed to include supplements relating to UFE in the final monthly energy allocation, as well as meter corrections and inadvertent energy. BGS suppliers, third-party suppliers, and municipalities, if applicable, would have their load obligations affected by transferring the responsibility of UFE to the EDCs. However, only BGS suppliers would be affected by transferring responsibility of the cost or credits for meter corrections and inadvertent energy to the EDCs, which would occur via financial settlements through billing line item transfers. If the board approves the EDC's proposal to assume responsibility for UFE in the final monthly energy allocation, as well as meter corrections and inadvertent energy, the EDCs also propose to amend existing BGS RSCP SMAs. The transfer of responsibility would only occur if the board approves the EDC's proposal and all current BGS RSCP suppliers with contracts extending beyond June 1, 2022 elect to execute the amendment at their option. Finally, if approved, the EDCs would communicate changes relating to UFE in the final monthly energy allocation, as well as meter corrections and inadvertent energy to all market participants, including third-party suppliers and municipalities if applicable. Before moving on to the next element, I would like to highlight one additional element of the BGS RSCP Supplier Master Agreement included in the EDC's proposal. During the 2020 and 2021 BGS proceedings, the board approved the use of the capacity proxy prices as the actual capacity prices for some delivery years in the supply period were not known prior to those auctions. To avoid excessive premiums in BGS bids, the EDCs again proposed to set capacity proxy prices this year for energy year 2024 and 2025 to the extent that the capacity prices for those energy years are not known at least 20 business days prior to the start of the BGS RSCP auction. Under the supplements in the proposed BGS RSCP SMA, the BGS RSCP supplier would be paid or would pay the difference between the rate that the supplier pays for its capacity and its capacity proxy price for each of energy year 2024 and energy year 2025. The rate design is also a key element of the EDC's BGS proposal. It allows BGS rates to be market-based and to reflect final auction prices. Consistent with the 2021 auctions, transmission is removed from the BGS supplier responsibilities, and all EDCs show a separate transmission charge. As provided in each EDC's company-specific addendum, the rate design specifies how rates would be adjusted for capacity proxy prices for energy years 2024 and 2025, should the supplements in the BGS RSCP SMA be used. As in the past, the EDCs request the rate design be approved in advance by the board. This is important for bidders as bidders use the rate design to assess migration risks and to prepare their bids. While the rate design would be approved in advance by the board, calculations would be refreshed approximately 10 days before bids are due with the latest data from PJM. And with that, I will now pass the presentation back to Rachel to talk about the next elements of the EDC's proposal.
Thanks, Paul. The fourth element of the EDC's proposal is the auction format. Consistent with prior years, the auction format is proposed as a descending clock auction, which is a multi-round and multi-product process. Over several rounds, bidders submit bids and receive information regarding those bids, and then bidders have an opportunity to bid again at a lower price in a subsequent round. As the auction progresses and one round leads to the next, bidders know that they must lower their price in order to win at the auction. Competition among the suppliers drives the prices in the auction down to levels that are consistent with the market. This objective method of selecting winners through this auction process provides for greater transparency that maximizes participation and thus minimizes prices. And as has been done in prior years, bidders will be submitting their bids using a web-based interface. The ways in which various information is communicated and made available to bidders encompasses the fifth element of the EDC's proposal. The auction manager ensures the interface with bidders, meaning that the auction manager is the one to provide information to bidders, and this is done in several ways. We maintain a BGS auction website that serves as a central source of information about the auctions. We also host a number of webcasts, the first of which is scheduled for early October, a second will be held at the end of November, and then a third will be held in January. We also provide bidders an opportunity to practice submitting their bids in the web-based interface and 2 training sessions that are set to occur in January. The auction manager responds to bidder questions and makes available the resulting question and answer on the BGS auction website. And the auction manager also processes bidder applications and works to establish a qualified field of bidders for the auction. The sixth element of the proposal is the inclusion of a set of competitive safeguards that further promote competition in the auction. One of these safeguards includes provisions to adjust the auction volume to ensure a competitive bidding environment. A second is the use of load caps, which are limits on the amounts that any bidder may bid and win in the auction. This limits credit risk for customers and prevents large bidders from unduly influencing the results of the auction. Lastly, there are specific association rules that are designed to prevent collusion amongst bidders. This year, the EDCs are proposing to conduct the BGS auctions from a remote setting and not to conduct the BGS auctions from the physical auction office, putting into play those protocols that were established for the 2021 BGS auctions in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The EDCs are also proposing to take the steps needed to close or sublet the physical auction office. Conducting the auctions from a remote setting and closing or subletting the physical auction office will provide a reduction in those costs associated with maintaining the physical auction office to the benefit of BGS customers. As I have already mentioned, bidders will have an opportunity to participate in 2 separate training sessions to allow bidders to practice submitting their bids using the web-based interface. These training sessions will provide an opportunity for bidders to practice their bidding procedures from the location from which they anticipate they will be bidding in the actual auction. We'd like to note here that the auction manager will work with and accommodate the needs of the board's consultant to ensure that they're able to effectively observe and monitor the auctions. There are well-defined roles for the auction manager, the EDCs, the board, and the board's consultant. The auction manager is responsible for carrying out auction promotional efforts, communicating information, organizing responses to bidder questions, and administering the auction in accordance with the auction rules as approved by the board. The board's consultant oversees the conduct of the auctions and briefs the board during the auction process. The board monitors the auctions and reviews and renders a decision on the final auction results. We look forward to working with the board consultant and board staff as representatives of the board to reach decisions on key issues such as the starting prices, as well as working with them while they observe the auctions. And in conclusion, as in prior years, we request that the board approve the auction process as filed by the EDCs including those proposed changes relating to the physical BGS auction office. We request that the board continue to follow a procedure that will enable it to render a decision on the auction results within 2 business days of the close of the auction. As in prior years, we request that the BGS rate design be established prior to the auction. And finally, we request that the board approve the contingency plan, cost recovery, and accounting treatment set forth in each company's specific addendum. Thank you, President Fiordaliso, and thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. And I just have one question for you. From your perspective last year, having the auction done remotely, did you see any drawbacks? Did you see any benefits? Did you see in any way that the auction itself was harmed? Or on the other side of the coin, was it enhanced? Someone from NERA going to answer me, or?
Yeah, sorry. This is Paul. We actually we didn't see a decrease in participation, and actually I think we saw more participants last year than we did in prior years. We had no indication during the auction process from any of the bidders that they had difficulty accessing and participating in the process. We had better than average attendance during the bidder training sessions. So the board's direction to hold 2 training sessions last year was well taken by NERA and the participants. And we actually saw great participation. So the answer would be, I don't think the process is harmed, and it was helped in many ways because we did see an increase in participation.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any questions for NERA?
Yeah,
have
Mr.
Oh. Yeah, I was just wondering how often are adjustments needed to UFE and inadvertent, energy issues?
Yes, thank you. I will pass that question to representatives from the EDCs that are on the call with me today.
Good morning, President and Commissioners. Thank you for the question. This is Ed Stein with First Energy. As far as the frequency of of the various line items, et cetera, that we're talking about, every month, at least for inadvertent and meter correction, there are some values on there. The resettlements for customers, et cetera, those come in every couple months, I would say, give or take, but they can be very large in nature. So it's not just a frequency issue; it's also a scale issue.
Okay.
Commissioner Shivakula?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to get just clarification on the last month of the energy year. How does the process work? Maybe can you please elaborate on that?
Sure. Are you asking for the last year in the supply period, or you're asking a question about May each energy year? What would happen in?
Yeah, I think, I think what I heard, hopefully I heard it correct, that during the last month, there's something different in terms of don't have the data or unused energy, something like I heard. So I just want to understand that.
Yeah, and just a further clarification, is this in relation to the slides on unaccounted for energy, or is this relating to the capacity price, proxy prices?
Generally, I talked about energy. I think that's what I heard, energy. Yeah, I didn't hear capacity.
Okay, sorry.
Hi, good morning again. This is, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ed.
Maybe if I give a brief description, maybe that'll help the question a bit and see if we're answering it. properly. So generally speaking, and I'll go on camera here too. Hi, good morning. Generally speaking, the way energy settlements work is there's the PMEA and the FMEA. PMEA, that's your primary settlement. That's a day or two after flow. That's the kind of data we're using. So if today is Monday, on Wednesday, I will be calculating Monday's energy allocations to all retail suppliers by using the customer data we have at that point in time. As you can appreciate, on Wednesday, I will not have retail billed customers on Monday. Okay, so I'm using a month ago's data for those customers. When we calculate the FMEA, that quote final settlement, we're using what's called in PJM the recon data, secondary data. You'll hear it referred to a couple different ways, final settlement, et cetera. That data is just in round numbers, is using data from 60 days from now. So in other words, 60 days from now, I'll look back at today, Monday, and see if I have improved data for that day. Likely I've retail billed the customer, et cetera. I will use that data at that point, submit that to PJM. That also becomes what's used in the BGS contracts for the FMEA. So I'll pause there for a moment. Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Staff, does staff have any questions for Nira?
No, President, we're good.
Okay, very good. Then let's move on. PSE&G.
Morning, President Federico. So Terry Moran from PSE&G. We have no comment.
Terry. I just said hi, you're on.
Good morning. Terry Moran from PSE&G. Good morning. We have no comments this morning.
Okay, thank you, Terry. JCP&L.
Kevin Sy from JCP&L. Good morning. We have no further comments as well.
Thank you. Atlantic City Electric.
Good morning. This is Diana Novak from Atlantic City Electric, and we also have no comments.
Thank you, Diana. Rockland.
Good morning. This is Sergeant Jacob. We have no further comments.
Thank you. Next, we have the Independent Energy Producers of New Jersey. For the record, please, again, identify yourself with spelling of your name. Who's representing?
That would be me, Commissioner, from Gable Associates. My name is Nicholas Freschi. Freschi spelled F-R-E-S-C-H-I.
Good morning.
Good morning. 1 second. Okay. The Independent Energy Producers of New Jersey, IEP-NJ, appreciates the opportunity to comment on the basic generation service filings for the period beginning June 1st, 2022. IEP-NJ is a trade association that represents New Jersey's wholesale electric power generators. IEP-NJ has actively participated before the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities for over 25 years and in BGS issues since its creation in EDECA in 1999. Our members bid in the BGS auction and are active participants in the region's wholesale power market. IEP-NJ members are also own or operate electricity generation capacity in New Jersey. Members include corporations that sell electricity into the wholesale market for consumption by the state's utilities and power suppliers, which in turn sell that power to New Jersey homes and businesses, as well as companies that provide electricity for on-site use at New Jersey industrial and commercial facilities. Since 1992, IEP-NJ has worked productively with stakeholders, including the Department of Environmental Protection, the BPU, and state legislator to develop responsible environmental and energy policies. IEP-NJ seeks to bring the benefits of competition to all power customers. IEP&J recommends that the BPU continue to hold the historically successful BGS auction structure as proposed by the EDCs. It is IEP&J's position that the 3-year BGS auction structure strikes the appropriate balance to hedge against price spikes while minimizing future risks to suppliers that would occur under contracts of a longer term. A 3-year term allows the suppliers bidding into the BGS auction to rely on several known variables when preparing its bid. Knowing these values reduces the risk to suppliers, thereby helping to keep their bid prices reasonably low. The averaging of the 3-year term contracts entered over the course of 3 years provides stability to customer rates. A term of less than 3 years will result in increased price volatility. This increased price volatility will increase the budgetary stress on BGS customers who benefit from stable energy rates. The current 3-year structure addresses the appropriate goal of protecting consumers from price volatility in the energy markets. As a result, based on the success of the structure over the last 2 decades, we strongly endorse the continuation of the BGS auction structure.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have questions?
Yeah, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide these comments.
Thank you for your comments. Hearing none, staff, any questions for independent energy producers?
No comments from staff, President.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Next, we have Electrify America. And who's representing?
Hello. Before I start, can everyone hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Oh, great. All right, and before I start talking, let me share my screen. We have some slides we'd like to share, and I can't do 2 things at once. Everyone see my slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. So hello, my name is James Bride, and I'm representing Electrify America for the purposes of today's hearing regarding basic generation service for the period beginning June 2022. Electrify America is a subsidiary of the Volkswagen Group headquartered in Reston, Virginia. Electrify America is investing $2 billion in zero-emission vehicle infrastructure and access efforts to support the increased adoption of zero-emission vehicle technology in the United States. To date, Electrify America has constructed 656 direct current fast charging stations with over 2,800 individual chargers throughout the US. As the slide indicates, Electrify America is rapidly scaling its network and will have another 144 stations activated by year end. New Jersey, Electrify America presently has 12 DCFC, standing for direct current fast charging stations, operating and 8 additional sites under active development. These stations represent 122 individual chargers available to EV drivers. New Jersey has ambitious goals for transportation electrification, codified in Title 48, Section 25(3) of the New Jersey statutes. Specifically, New Jersey's goals of 330,000 and 2 million light-duty EV registrations by 2025 and 2035, respectively, are ambitious. And New Jersey has goals of no fewer than 200 direct current fast charging stations available to the public by 2025. Electrify America is committing capital to help New Jersey realize these ambitious goals. All Electrify America charging stations take basic generation service for supply. Electrify America expects that it will continue to utilize basic generation service for supply since competitive suppliers are either unwilling to serve DCFC station loads or place large risk premiums on bids due in part to the unknown risk of capacity charges for generation and transmission. Capacity cost obligations in the BGS are based on customer capacity tags. Capacity tags are set based on customer usage during the peak load intervals of the prior summer. So what we're showing in this slide here is just an example invoice where it shows the capacity tag line items on, this is a PSE&G bill, and showing for a relatively new station the impact of capacity charges on the total bill. For new accounts, capacity tags are set based on anticipated loads. This was a problem for Electrify in that these estimated tags produced very high costs while the sites were new and just beginning to build traffic. They weren't tied to actual contribution to the prior year system peak, but in essence, they were estimated based on anticipated loads. For new stations with high estimated tags relative to the initial load that materializes, or stations that are just unlucky, these capacity charges can preclude profitable station operation. Direct current fast charging stations must be available to serve EV drivers who are in transit and require a charge to reach their destination. As a result, the load is very inelastic. For EV adoption to be successful, EV drivers must be able to count on DC fast charge station availability, and these drivers cannot be turned away due to the potential of a peak load event. As PJM load data shows here, station operation would have to be limited at least 13 times during the summer of 2020 to ensure that capacity tags would be minimized. Capacity tags are set for both generation and transmission, and the peak days used to determine capacity tags for generation and transmission can occur at different dates or hours, as shown, again, not to pick on PSE&G, but we were showing to the right there the dates where the peak load events occurred in the PJM grid as a whole, which applies to all customers throughout PJM for capacity tags, and then specifically the zonal peaks that are used to determine the transmission capacity tags. So stations must be available for all drivers, especially during commuting hours, and curtailing station availability on 13 days during the late afternoon would be an unacceptable interruption to EV drivers and station operation. So there's two potential solutions to this issue. The first is through a rate design change that would collect generation and transmission capacity costs through volumetric charges. The second is for all DCFC stations to install storage to manage loads. Installation of storage adds significant capital cost and complexity to interconnections, and higher capital costs due to a storage mandate, which is in essence what the current rate design represents, would result in less capital to construct more DC fast charging stations and could potentially imperil New Jersey's goal to realize 200 DCFC stations in operation statewide by 2025. So in our initial comments, we proposed an alternative rate design for capacity. On a class basis, total cost for capacity can be determined on a $ per megawatt hour basis, and most utility company-specific addendums filed in the BGS include the information needed to perform this calculation to determine generation and transmission costs in dollars per megawatt hour. Electrify America proposed the creation of an optional revenue-neutral capacity charge billing option for transportation electrification loads. In a revenue-neutral rate design, the utility would collect the same revenue through volumetric charges on a class basis as it does currently through the current system. To ensure revenue adequacy, Electrify America proposed multi-year opt-in commitments to such an alternative optional rate design and portfolio enrollment. So a transportation electrification station operator would have to enroll all accounts to participate. Many other peer states have default supply charges that are purely volumetric, including Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, parts of most of the Ohio utilities, and NYSEG and RGE in New York. The predictability of supply charges in these markets has been very helpful to Electrify America to forecast the costs to operate its DC fast charging stations. What we have in this graph here is just an example of our capacity tags for selected stations in operation. And as you can see, most of our tags fell beginning June 2021 when estimated tags that were initially assigned to our accounts reset based on actual 2020 load data. This would suggest that drivers don't like charging their EVs during the hottest days of the summer, but these are very unpredictable charges, as DC fast charging load at hourly levels of granularity is unpredictable. And presently, capacity cost exposure is a large unhedgeable risk for us with the current rate designs. In the proposal that we've provided, Electrify America would actually pay much more for capacity than we would based on our tags in the current capacity year. But again, the aim is to get predictability in what these charges will be, as they are a large and unhedgeable risk. And so in order to offer public EV charging at costs that are comparable to home charging or gasoline equivalents, Electrify America must have predictable utility charges. And we believe that the proposed rate design that we've submitted in our initial comments offers the certainty that we need to operate DC fast charging stations while delivering adequate revenues for capacity costs to the utilities. And lastly, EV drivers such as apartment dwellers must rely on public charging, and there's equity and access considerations in rate designs as well, given the difference between public charging costs and home charging. And lastly, this table here is just a short summary of the proposed changes that we raised in our initial comments regarding what would be needed for each utility to create a optional volumetric rate option for capacity costs within the BGS. And that concludes my initial comments. And I welcome any questions on our presentation.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions for Electrify America?
Mr. President, I have one question.
Yes.
Jim, when you are doing installing your charges, are you going to at the public places? You must be going through some contracting process, correct?
That is correct. There's an extensive process for site selection that looks into multiple criteria, such as adequate vehicular traffic, the availability of the parking spots, the availability of power. And so it's a fairly sort of, I'd say, complex site selection process to get all the ingredients that are necessary for a good site.
Does it also have, in terms of the energy related costs in that proposal, in the contracting?
You know, I'd have to maybe follow up with that. I'm not familiar with all the exact details of everything in the site selection process, but there is a process with the utilities for make-ready infrastructure under the shared responsibility model that New Jersey adopted. So there's the cost with the utilities around the line extension through make-ready funding, and then there's also specific costs with the host sites, typically shopping plazas or other places where there's the proximity to a highway and parking spaces available.
Is your proposal, are you looking at a separate tariff for EV charging? Is that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I think what we're asking for is an opt-in, an optional volumetric billing option within the BGS, where if we took all of our sites, grouped them together on a portfolio basis, that if the class average for capacity is 4.5 cents or 4 cents a kilowatt hour, that we could pay that price on a volumetric basis for all loads, and that the utilities could recover the capacity costs volumetrically as opposed to the actual capacity tags. And I think the idea behind that is that might be sites with higher tags and sites with lower tags, but on a portfolio basis, it should deliver sufficient revenue adequacy to provide the capacity costs needed to pay the BGS suppliers, but at the same time give Electrify some certainty as to what the cost to operate these stations will be.
Also, your EV stations have no storage capacity, so that way you can offset the peak hour load to off-peak load?
Well, I think, so Electrify throughout its portfolio does have over 100 sites with energy storage. I think the challenge there comes down to capital costs and complexity. So to construct a site that has storage to manage these tags, it can be done, but it adds significant capital cost and complexity to the interconnection process. And so I think our argument is that if we have what amounts to a storage mandate, Electrify will be able to construct less sites in New Jersey due to storage consuming capital that could otherwise go to more DC fast charging station sites.
Yeah, my questions are only for clarification. Thank you.
No, thank you. Those are good questions.
President?
Yeah, Bob?
Yes. If I'm understanding what Mr. Bride is is describing, it would seem to me that this is this issue is potentially a major impediment to our EV charging infrastructure goals, and an impediment to our plans for the next few years. I wondered if staff could respond to this, if not now, to the board in the near future, either in writing or in briefings. I mean, this is worrisome if I'm interpreting it correctly.
Mr. Bride, do you have any comment regarding that?
Excuse me?
Do you have any comment regarding the commissioner's question?
No, I thank you for that comment. It is a significant challenge, and I think that we're very sensitive to the need to collect sufficient revenues to pay the BGS suppliers for the the commitments that they've made. But as you can see, for this specific site, this is at a large shopping plaza, and Electrify had multiple sites within its portfolio that looked like this. It was pretty painful until the capacity tags reset. And so I do think that your observation is correct, that this is a real challenge that we think can get resolved with an opt-in rate design that leaves the BGS suppliers and other customers no worse off, but can give some predictability to these types of loads, which are new and emerging. And I think as Electrify opens more stations and we get more visibility into EV driver behavior, we're learning a lot more about these loads, but they're still kind of an emerging customer type in the industry.
I think staff, regarding this, do you have any comments initially?
Yes, Mr. President and Commissioner Gordon. I can say that while we were reviewing the 2 approved electric vehicle filings, this issue was brought up in those matters, and the stipulations and board orders actually address the BGS component. Remember, the BGS is a pass-through cost for customers who do not shop for their electric supply. So what we have said was that the utilities should be collecting data to inform a fair and equitable rate design for BGS or solution for BGS in the future. So we are looking at it, and certainly would be happy to brief the commissioners.
Okay, good. Very good. So we look forward to that, Stacy.
Thank you.
Is that satisfactory to you, Bob?
Yes, and I want to thank Mr. Bride for raising these issues for us. This is why we're holding these stakeholder meetings. This is good information to have, and hopefully we'll respond appropriately so we can address these, avoid these problems.
Yep. Anybody else with any questions? Staff, any questions for Mr. Bride?
Not at this time, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Bride,
everyone.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Finally, New Jersey Division of Ratepayer. And again, please identify yourself and spell your name and who is presenting.
Good morning, Mr. President. This is David Wand from New Jersey Rate Council. Good morning. And Wand is spelled W-A-N-D, just like it sounds. So I have a prepared statement, and then I will also be available to answer any questions at the end of this. And I'll try to respond as much as I can to the statements already made today. So good morning. As I said, my name is David Wand. I am a Deputy Rate Counsel with the New Jersey Division of Rate Counsel. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today regarding the 2022 BGS proposal submitted by the Electric Distribution Companies, or EDCs. Rate Counsel has filed initial written comments with the board in this matter, and our comments today focus on the EDC's most significant change to the current process, which is the transfer of unaccounted for energy, or UFE, from BGS suppliers, as well as from third-party suppliers and municipalities to the EDCs. We'll also comment on the EDC's plan to address further delays to the PJM capacity auctions, the benefits and risks of holding a remote BGS auction, and a proposal to change the calculation of demand charges. In our written comments, we noted that the EDCs proposed to defer and recover the costs or credits related to the transfer of UFE through an annual reconcilable non-bypassable charge, such as the non-utility generation charge, or NGC. While ACE, JCP&L, and PSE&G appear to have already have an NGC, RICO would have to create a new surcharge mechanism. The EDCs further propose to include all costs or credits regarding meter corrections and inadvertent energy in their respective reconciliation charges. As I mentioned, these charges would apply not only to BGS suppliers, but third-party suppliers and municipalities as well. The EDCs contend that the benefit associated with these changes in the supply is that suppliers may provide lower bids to reflect reduced risks. Based on the information provided in discovery, Rate Counsel is unpersuaded by the EDC's arguments and respectfully requests that the board reject the proposed changes to UFE. Our recommendation is based on the fact that the EDCs have not proven the changes needed. For instance, the EDCs have not discussed these UFE changes with any BGS suppliers, third-party suppliers, or as far as we know, any municipality, nor have they conducted any legal analysis to determine if their proposed changes are even feasible under the TPS agreements currently on file with the board. So as a preliminary matter, it's clear to Rate Counsel that additional stakeholder input is needed before the board makes a decision on UFE. Second, however, if the board decides that UFE is an important issue to address, Rate Counsel recommends that the board open a separate proceeding to examine the issue of UFE for all the EDCs generically, but also to specifically examine the issues and factors affecting JCP&L's much larger UFE problems. In addition to the changes to responsibility for UFE, the EDCs request authority to continue to add a capacity proxy price to the BGS RSCP supplier master agreement in place of currently unknown prices of the PJM capacity auction, known as the base residual auction. Since the auctions have not yet occurred, this is consistent with the EDC's treatment of unknown capacity prices in prior auctions and looks necessary for this auction as well, considering PJM has already requested permission from FERC to delay the 2023-2024 BRA until January 25th, 2022. Because uncertainty continues to persist at the federal level regarding the PJM capacity market, Rate Counsel recommends that the EDC's proposed methodology for setting the capacity proxy price for each of the delivery years remains reasonable. Regarding the remote auction platform, Rate Counsel is in favor of reducing administrative costs associated with the physical BGS auction office while the auctions are being conducted remotely. That said, security and the integrity of the auction process should be maintained. So while Rate Counsel appreciates the minor administrative efficiencies achieved by a remote auction, Rate Counsel believes that the balance between convenience and security needs to be re-examined in the next BGS proceeding as circumstances change. And just to expand on that, what I mean is when you have everyone using the internet, there's the ability for maybe more things to go wrong or to security to be compromised. So we want that examined each year. We think it makes sense this year, but in subsequent years, we'd appreciate if the board looked at it again. Last, we'd like to address some of the comments made by Electrify America. It is our understanding that the board has stated in prior orders regarding the EDC's electric vehicle programs that the annual BGS process is open to all parties who wish to file proposals. While Rate Counsel welcomes the comments of all interested parties, we believe more information is necessary before the board makes any changes to the EDC's demand charges based solely on Electrify America's initial comments. Rather, Rate Counsel recommends that the board open another proceeding to gather additional information and fully examine the issue before making a decision. We have questions about the influence of Electrify America's business model in their proposed changes, and whether all stakeholders have had sufficient input in this process. So this concludes my comments today. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you on behalf of New Jersey ratepayers, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, David. Any of my colleagues have questions for David? Staff, any questions?
No questions from staff.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again, David. Those are the only presentations that we have been told that have an interest in speaking here today. I want to thank everyone for their participation. And I will just ask my colleagues if they have any other comments.
Mr. President, I think it's a good presentation. There are some questions, those are raised by the Rate Counsel, Mr. David Wand, and I think we should explore that. I mean, my understanding of the UFE, and so maybe we can explore that further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I share in that observation. Would like to get a little bit more information on that as well.
Very good. Anyone else? I think also it was a good presentation today, and I think opened some eyes as to some of the challenges that we may face as we continue to go down this road and as we evolve into more of an electrified system. And a lot of questions to be answered, a lot of roads to go down, a lot of challenges to overcome. But I'm sure that we will address them always, as we do, in the best interest of the ratepayers of the state of New Jersey. I will just remind everyone again, the final written comments for the BGS procurement proceedings are due on Tuesday. And listen to this, Ryan, October 12th, 2021, by the close of business on that day. Final comments should only be used to respond to the issues raised, either in initial comments or in today's hearing. They should not be used to raise new matters in this proceeding. And now I'll close this hearing. And again, I would like to thank my colleagues, staff, and all of you who have contributed to this hearing. Have a good day. Thank you.